Welcome back to Agriculture from 2. We are now on topic 2, which is soil fertility. Last time we were discussing on topic 1, which the topic was soil composition, whereby we looked on the 5 composition of soil. We discussed that soil is comprised of air, water, living organisms, organic matter, as well as inorganic particles. So we looked on several experiments just to prove the presence of those soil composition. But now let us proceed on the same soil, but now we're going to look on soil fertility. Under this topic, we're going mainly to investigate the difference between fertile and infertile soils. Apart from that, we're also going to look on the ways of maintaining soil fertility. We're going to see to it that soil fertility is very, very important in as far as boosting agricultural production is concerned, more especially crop production. So it is important to maintain soil fertility. That's why we're going to look on the ways of maintaining soil fertility. Look on the differences between soil, fertile soil and infertile soil. Before we go to that, let us define the term soil fertility. If we say the soil is fertile, we're talking of the ability of the soil to provide and sustain high crop yields indefinitely. A fertile soil should provide all necessary conditions for proper growth of crops and consequently give high crop yields of high quality. So that's how we can define soil fertility, or the soil which is fertile. So we're saying that the soil which is fertile, we're talking of that soil which is able to sustain high crop yield indefinitely. Now let us look on how we can conduct an experiment just to investigate the differences between fertile and infertile soils. So in order for you to conduct this experiment so as to come up with the differences between fertile and infertile soil, you need the following materials. You need, number 1, sample of fertile soils. You need sample of an infertile soils. You need maize seeds or any type of seed. You need pots or tins. You also need water. You need the ruler. So these are some of the apparatus or materials required when you want to investigate on the differences between fertile and infertile soil. So what are the procedures? First of all, you need to collect a soil sample from a garden where crops have been performing well. So such soil sample will represent fertile soil. Then the second stage is to collect another soil sample from the garden where crops have been performing poorly. So that will represent infertile soil. Then this third step is just to put the fertile soil in the first pot, then the equal amount of the infertile soil in the second pot. Then another thing which is required is now to plant the seed, whether maize seed or any other seed, in each of the pots at the same depth. After planting, you need to water the seeds. So stage number 6 is just by watering the seeds in the pot. So you need to practice regular watering of the seeds with the same quality of water and with the same frequency in both pots. Then observe the plants as they grow and note any differences. Apart from that, you also need to measure the height of each plant using a ruler or on a daily basis. After the observation, you can record your results in a table like the one shown for a period of 2 weeks. The table which is just displayed. So you record in terms of the height of plants in the pot where you put fertile soil, and also the height of plants in centimeters from the pot where you placed in fertile soil. So the expected results could be the maize seeds in terms of germination. The maize seeds germinated at the same time, both in the fertile as well as in fertile soil. The seeds germinated at the same time. But seedlings in the fertile soil were observed to have a high growth rate compared to the seedlings in the fertile soil. So after germination, there were some differences in terms of the growth rate. So it was the expectation is that there will be high growth rate in the fertile soil rather than in an infertile soil. The reason behind could be, as we have already explained, the meaning of the term soil fertility, or the soil which is fertile. A fertile soil provides the crop with all conditions necessary for growth. So that's why maybe there was high growth rate. Apart from that, the soil has the various minerals required for proper growth of the plant. On the other hand, infertile soil lacks some of these essential minerals, and hence the plants do not show proper growth. And the plants may show different deficiency symptoms, more especially in infertile soil, depending on the missing mineral. So let us see some deficiency symptoms that may be observed in an infertile soil. So some of the deficiency symptoms could be stunted growth, chlorosis, meaning yellowing of leaves, poor development of leaves, rolling or curling of leaves, premature leaf fall. So those are some of the deficiency symptoms which might be observed in an infertile soil. So we can, after conducting that experiment, we can draw this conclusion that fertile soil allows proper growth of plants, while infertile soil does not allow proper growth of plants. So from the experiment which have just been described, it means we can have the differences between fertile and infertile soil. So some of the differences between fertile and infertile soils could be infertile soil contains all the minerals essential for proper growth. On the other hand, in an infertile soil may be lacking one or more of the minerals essential for proper growth. Apart from that, fertile soil has the right depth depending on the crop growth. On the other hand, infertile soil may be shallow with respect to the crop growth. And another difference could be fertile soil has the right water holding capacity, while infertile soil may hold too much or too little water to allow proper growth. Fertile soil also has good porosity, hence well aerated. On the other hand, infertile soil may have poor porosity, hence poorly aerated. And the last difference could be fertile soil is free from excessive soil-borne pests and diseases, while infertile soil may have excessive soil-borne pests and diseases. So, from the differences between fertile and infertile soil, we can note that fertile soil is very essential when it comes to boosting crop production. Therefore, it is important to maintain soil fertility. It is important to maintain soil fertility. Even if the soil has lost its fertility, it is also important for that soil to restore its fertility. So, let us look on some of the ways which will help to restore or maintain soil fertility. So, a soil that is no longer productive or that which is less productive can be made more productive through various practices. One of the practices is application of organic and inorganic fertilizer. Apart from that, practicing crop rotation, regulation of soil pH may help. Controlling soil erosion is also another way. Timely weed control, practicing minimum tillage, as well as practicing intercropping. So now let us discuss on two details how each and every way will help to increase productivity of the soil or may increase its fertility. Let's start with application of organic and inorganic manure. These most of the times will replenish the nutrients lost from the soil. As we are aware that organic manure releases humus that bind the soil particles, thus improving soil structure. At the same time as they release humus, they also release nutrients which will add some nutrients into the soil. Apart from that, they also help to buffer the soil pH, thus preventing rapid changes in the soil pH. Apart from that, organic manure acts as food and shelter to soil organisms, thus increasing microbial activities. So, organic manure, most of the times, they'll provide the conducive environment for microorganisms which will help in decomposition process, thereby increasing the microbial activity. Apart from that, another way we've mentioned which will improve soil fertility is by practicing crop rotation. Remember, crop rotation is the practice of growing different types of crops on the same piece of land following a definite succession. So, this may help to improve soil fertility in the following ways. Number one, just by controlling specific soil-borne pests and diseases. Apart from that, ensures maximum utilization of soil minerals from all horizons, just because different types of crops are grown, some with deep roots, some with shallow roots. So that will ensure maximum utilization of soil minerals in all horizons. Apart from that, in crop rotation, legumes might be included in the cycle, thereby adding nitrates through nitrogen fixation, hence improving soil fertility. And also, crop rotation will also control specific crop weeds such as witch weeds. So these witch weeds, if they are controlled, it means they will not be absorbing much nutrients. Another way is just by regulating soil pH, regulation of soil pH. Soil pH is a degree of acidity or alkalinity in a soil solution. if we can test the soil, as you find that some of the soils are acidic and some of them are alkaline. When the soils are too acidic as well as when they are too alkaline, they are not good for crop growth. They are not good for crop growth. In short, when the soils are too acidic as well as when they are too alkaline, in short, it means they are not fertile. Those soils are not fertile. But we need to regulate we need to modulate the soil pH. At least they should be moderate. They should be moderate. At moderate pH, most of the time the soils becomes fertile. So how can we regulate soil pH? We can regulate soil pH just by the use of organic manures. Apart from that, just by the use of acidic fertilizer as well as even basic fertilizers. So most of the times we can use acidic fertilizers on the soils which are basic or on the soils which are alkaline. So if you apply acidic fertilizers on alkaline soils, at least that will regulate soil pH. At the same time, if we can apply the fertilizers which are basic on acidic soils, it means we are going to regulate soil pH. The soil pH will be moderated, improving soil fertility. Apart from that, we can just use the agricultural lime. Agricultural lime is basic in nature, so it means these materials can be applied on the soils which are acidic, since we are saying lime is basic in nature. So acidic, if you add lime which is basic, at least the soil can be neutral. So a good soil pH has the following benefits. Number one, ensures availability of crop nutrients. As I've already said, that if the soil is neutral, most of the times it will accommodate different types of nutrients to be available. And also a good soil pH increases the population of activity of microbial organisms. So it is only at neutral pH where it will provide conducive environment for microorganisms, increasing their activity. And lastly, determine the type of crop to be grown. Different types of pH, different types of crops to be grown. Apart from that, another way of improving soil fertility is just by controlling soil erosion. Remember, we defined soil erosion as the removal of the top layer of the soil, which is much more productive by the action of wind as well as water. So if this is controlled, it means the top layer of the soil, which is more productive, will be there, thereby improving the soil fertility. It is more productive, the top layer of the soil, just because it contains different type of nutrients. So there are a number of practices that a farmer can carry out to reduce soil erosion. Some of these are mulching. Mulching will reduce splash erosion. Growing cover crops, those will also reduce splash erosion. Strip cropping, this will also reduce soil erosion. Contour farming, this will reduce the speed of runoff, thereby the top layer of the soil cannot be carried. The same applies. Terracing will reduce the speed of runoff. Apart from that, use of cut-off drains. All these, at least they will reduce the speed of runoff. So if the speed of runoff is reduced, obviously it means we can also minimize or control soil erosion. Another way is through timely weed control. There are some of the weeds, the weeds compete with the cultivated crops for various resources such as water, air, space, as well as even minerals. So if the weeds they are not controlled in time, it means they will be competing with the crops with the minerals. So it means the crop which you have grown will be absorbing the minerals. At the same time, the weeds will also be absorbing those minerals, leading to low fertility in the soil. And also some of the weeds, some of them, they are heavy feeders. In order for them to grow, they will absorb too much nutrients, thereby reducing amount of minerals available in the soil, affecting the soil fertility. So some weeds are alternative. They are also alternative host of crop pests as well as diseases, and these consequently lead to poor crop yield. Therefore, weeds should be controlled and at the right time before serious damage is done. So there are several methods a farmer can employ to control weeds. Some of the methods are, of course, these methods are categorized into 5. What we call legislative, where laws are passed, cultural methods, mechanical method, biological method, as well as chemical method. On legislative, it's just a matter of imposing the laws to prevent the spread of the strange weeds. Cultural, you just use the normal crop husbandry practices which will eliminate some of the weeds. Mechanical, you use the machines to remove the weeds. Biological, you use living things or living organisms to get rid of the weeds. While on the chemical, you use for example, the herbicides. We're talking of the agricultural chemicals. You use the herbicides to eliminate the weeds. Another way of improving soil fertility is through practicing minimum tillage. Most of the times, if we cultivate now and again on the soil, that will destroy the soil structure. On the other hand, destroying the fertility of the soil. So a farmer should therefore reduce the tillage operation as much as possible. So one way of minimizing the tillage operation is just by practicing minimum tillage, whereby the soil is tilled if and only if you want to plant, but there is no need of land preparation, plowing, tilling the land, making ridges, because if you do over cultivate, that might destroy the soil structure. So you just go straight and plant the seeds. So minimum tillage improves soil fertility in the following ways. Number 1, by maintaining the soil structure. Most of the times there is the relationship between soil structure and soil fertility. If there is good soil structure, obviously that will accommodate more nutrients, improving the fertility. Apart from that, conserves the soil moisture. Minimum tillage. Apart from that, it reduces root damage and disturbance, since there is no maximum cultivation on the land, so that will reduce root damage and disturbance. And lastly, it will also reduce soil erosion. Why? Just because the soil will remain intact. If you till the land, the soil becomes loose, thereby encouraging soil erosion. But if there is minimum tillage, most of the soils they are intact, thereby reducing soil erosion. The last way is through practicing intercropping. This is the practice of growing different types of crops on the same piece of land at the same time. This one helps to maintain soil fertility in the following ways. Number one, by ensuring maximum utilization of soil minerals. Since we're planting different types of crops, those different types of crops, they will use different types of minerals, so thereby ensuring maximum utilization of minerals. There will be no compiling of only specific type of nutrients in the soil, so there will be a well distribution of nutrients in the soil. Apart from that, legumes included among the crops add nitrates through nitrogen fixation. So when you are planting different types of crops, obviously the legumes might also be included. So if they are included, at least they will help to supply nitrogen in the soil through nitrogen fixation. Apart from that, they provide better ground cover, hence controlling soil erosion. If you are planting different types of crops, obviously it means the soil will not be bare. The soil will not be bare. If that is the case, soil erosion will be controlled. There will be no splash erosion. There will be no splash erosion just because the soil will be covered by vegetation most of the times, and that will also smoother the weed growth. The weeds will not be growing healthy just because the land is covered with the crops or the vegetation. So the practical work which we can do, you can just visit the area around to identify if the crops are growing on fertile or infertile soil. And the other activity you can do is the exercise here. These are some of the questions I need you to answer. Number one, you need to define the terms of fertility and also list 4 differences between fertile and infertile soil. Also state 2 ways by which each of the following maintains soil fertility: crop rotation, minimum tillage. So you list how soil fertility can be maintained through practicing crop rotation and minimum tillage. And also just give 4 other methods of maintaining soil fertility. Apart from crop rotation and minimum tillage, you give 4 other methods of maintaining soil fertility. So that makes the end of part 1 of soil fertility. So far we have defined what soil fertility is, then we have also looked on the difference between fertile soil and infertile soil. Then we have also looked on some of the ways which will help to maintain, improve soil fertility. So next time we'll be looking on the types of fertilizer. Since we have mentioned application of fertilizer is one of the way of maintaining soil fertility, so we also need to look onto details on the types of fertilizer. Till then, goodbye.